The following program is seen statewide on California Public Television and is a California's Gold holiday classic.
Hello everybody, I'm Huell Hauser, and here we are on historic Olvera Street in downtown Los Angeles. Now, it's always exciting to visit Olvera Street, but it's especially interesting and exciting and festive to be down here during the Christmas holiday season, because for the past 70 years, the merchants of Olvera Street have put on a Las Posadas event. It takes place 9 consecutive nights from December the 16th to December the 24th, and of course Las Posadas represents Joseph and Mary's search for a place to stay. You know the famous story where they go to the inn and the innkeeper tells them there's no room at the inn, but there's a place for them to stay at the stable. That's what Las Posadas is all about, and of course this Las Posadas is just one of hundreds taking place all over California and one of thousands taking place around Mexico. As interesting and festive as this celebration is, though, that's not what this adventure is all about, because we're getting ready to go in search of a Christmas holiday tradition that's very colorful, very historic, very festive, and it takes place mainly in private homes. And if you're interested in what that Christmas tradition is all about, well, as always, you're invited to come along with us as we continue our search together for California's gold. Good afternoon. I'm Huell Hauser.
Hi, I'm Mary McGregor, Villareal.
And we are here at your invitation because Mary worked on a project, a research project for the Southwest Museum here in Los Angeles that is very, very interesting, and in a way it's little known to a lot of people. Tell us about your project.
Right. This project is on Mexican nacimientos, which are nativity scenes.
Nacimientos.
Nacimientos, yes. And I was working at the Southwest Museum with the curator there, Michael Heisley, and we put together a project where we went out into the community, the Mexican-American community in Los Angeles, and interviewed people and documented them about their nacimientos, which are the nativity scenes.
The nativity scenes,
right.
Because growing up in Tennessee, our family had a little nativity scene, and nativity scenes are found all over the world in people's homes and places of work during the holiday season. But this goes a step further, doesn't it?
Right. This is very special. Like you said, I expected originally to see sets where everything matched. All the figures were in scale and they came from the same artist. And what we found a lot in Los Angeles, and it's throughout the Hispanic world and other parts of the world too, is that people take those and elaborate on them and make wonderful assemblages of art that are pieces of art in and of themselves that go on beyond what the original little handcrafted scene was.
Now, I've seen pictures of some of the homes that you have visited.
Right.
Would you classify these things as folk art?
Oh, absolutely. This is folk art, probably at its best in some ways. You have the creativity that's involved in putting these together is just endless, and people's imaginations go wild. It's just endless what they can do with them. And each one, it's amazing because often you see the same figures, they came out of the same molds in Mexico, and they're put together in tremendously different ways. It's very exciting.
Now, this was a tradition started in Mexico hundreds of years ago and brought to California by the Mexican-American community who lives in California now.
Right. Well, actually, wherever Christianity was introduced by the Spaniards and the priests, nativity scenes were part of that, the indoctrination that they brought with them to the New World. So it's nativity scenes are found throughout Hispanic America, what they're called is different in every country. Some places call them portales, which means stable. And in Mexico, they call nacimientos, which refers to the birth of the baby Jesus.
Nacimiento, which means in translation?
The birth of the baby Jesus.
And it's not nativity.
Well, nativity, that's also means the same thing. Yes.
But for our purposes on this adventure, it's nacimiento.
Nacimiento, right.
Now, it's not a coincidence that we're standing out in front of this house. You have brought us here to meet someone and to see an example, a wonderful example. Actually, this was in your book, part of your research. Give us just a little hint as to who. Well, don't wait a minute. Let's don't give a hint. Let's just go in and see.
Okay.
Her name is
Emma Suquet, and she has been doing nacimientos since she was about 8 years old. And she's from the Texas-Mexican border. That's her background. And this is an example of a nacimiento that in some ways it's simple, believe it or not. It focuses directly on the birth of the baby Jesus and doesn't have lots of other figures, but it's put together in a great way.
Good. You're giving just enough to pique everyone's interest out there. We've already been in and kind of peeked inside. It is a very special display in here, and we're going to go inside and take a look at it right now.
Okay, Huell, I'd like you to meet Emma Suquet.
Hello.
How do you do?
Well, I can't shake hands. Look at her hands here. You've been in the mud.
Yes, I've been playing mud.
Well, tell us. Oh, there it is right there. This is what we came here to see. This has been part of your family tradition for how many years?
When my grandparents were younger, they started this tradition. I'm pretty sure that my great-grandparents did it too. And, you know, we hand the tradition over.
From generation to generation.
From generation to generation. Huh?
Now, when did you start working on it and building it yourself and dealing with it like you do now?
Like I do now when I was like about 10 years old, because I started when I was 8 years old. My aunt gave me a baby Jesus, and my mother taught me how to do it.
Ah, so you had your own nacimiento
yes,
built when you were a small child.
We did it every year, my mother and I, and it got bigger and better as we went along. After a while, I was doing it because I had my own ideas of how to do it, and she would just help in, like bringing stuff and things like that.
Now, your own ideas of how to do things are a little different from some of the other pictures I've seen of nacimientos.
Yes.
Yours is more organic, I guess is the word. There's mud, there's all of these cactus and plants here. How did that evolve?
Well, we are supposed to have, since we were little, we understood by my mother that she said that he was born out in the desert, out in the hills, where the sheep herders were with their sheep and all that, and then they were coming to see him. So we figured that since they were coming from all over, there was a space that was too big, and then we had to sort of put it into this size of a space to make it seem like it was the natural thing to do. Because I believe that making it as natural as possible. We sort of sacrifice, you know. We do the work, we get tired, and I believe that this kind of a season is for that.
Now, that gets into the question of how long it takes you to do it, because today is December the 18th, 19th. So, and you've still got a lot of work to do. How long does it take you to do all of this?
It'll probably take me until tomorrow. It takes me around a week because I carry everything in and start figuring out on how the structure is going to be and all that. And then I go to work. When I come back, I do a little bit more.
So is it different every year? Does it, if we came back next year, would it look different than it does this year?
I think it would. It's never been the same, huh?
How many years have you seen it?
I've been, I first met Emma in 1983, and I've seen lots of her nacimientos.
And it changes.
They're different every year because the space is different. Her plants change during the year. Her ideas change. But there are always some common elements, I think, and she might be able to tell you about that.
Which are the plants?
Well, she always has plants, and she always does a mud structure, and in the end, this will look like a mud hill or a hill.
So you're going to fill all of this in with mud.
Uh-huh. Then I'm going to cover up the pots. All those pots are not going to be there. They're going to fill in the spaces where I need them, and then I'm going to cover them with mud, and the only thing that's going to show is a plant like it's actually growing there.
Wow. You can do all that in one day?
Well, I can try.
So, look, this is just mud. Is this just out of your front yard here?
No, they got it from someplace else.
So you bring in mud.
I bring in mud from other places.
You bring in, where do you get all of this?
Well, those are part of the Christmas tree. The other one is rosemary from the back garden. And those are from across the street.
And what is all of this in here?
All those are the shells and rocks that go to decorate it.
So that's all part of decoration.
Yeah, I have them there because I want them to be nice and clean when I put them on.
Look at all of this, boy. And then we get into the figures themselves. Tell me about the figures and the history of the figures.
From what I know is actually the three wise men and the baby should not be there until the baby's born. The first one that's put in there is the baby. Because that's when he's born on the eve of Christmas.
So you would put the baby Jesus in on Christmas Eve?
On Christmas Eve, yeah. That's when we have the rosary. By then, everything's fixed up. That's when we have the food, and everybody, the family, and everybody's here. And we prepare to say the rosary, and then...
So it's a big deal in your house on
yes.
Christmas Eve.
Yes, it is a very nice... this is what I think Christmas means. I don't think Christmas means... Santa Claus and all that, but that comes in handy for the kids because the kids do love, and I guess through him the kids get gifts.
Yeah.
So they appreciate this kind of celebration very much.
Have you had the baby Jesus figure very long?
Yes. This one I've had it for quite a while already.
And you got your first baby Jesus
when
you were 8. What happened to that one?
That one broke. It broke, and my mom kept it for a long time, just before she passed away.
Yeah.
She still had it all, just a little bit, the body only, no arms, no legs, yeah. She kept it with her.
But do you add new figures from time to time? Would you want to make it bigger, or do you just
I would like more shepherds. If I can find another, the position of the shepherds be different, I would like to see, like that one's carrying the baby. And
little
the
baby sheep.
Uh-huh.
Now, is this from Mexico?
From Mexico, yes.
So these are all from Mexico. The angel does this go?
It goes on the top, it's supposed to be on a cloud, and it's on his knee, so it cannot be flying. So it has to be on top of there.
Put him on top of the stable.
Yeah, on top of there, and I tied him up, but that will come later until...
Well, you still got work to do.
Oh, yes.
Is there anything we're missing here, Mary, as far as the significance of any of this?
No, I don't think so. I was just going to point out that Emma's is a very wonderful example of keeping the Nacimiento totally on the theme of the birth of the baby Jesus. So all of her figures relate to the birth itself.
As opposed to
some Nacimientos, which we will see that have village scenes. They have scenes from Mexico in them. They have scenes from later in the life of Jesus that take a different take.
So really it's up to each individual family, isn't it, how they want to do their Nacimiento?
I want to do it as old-fashioned as possible, as more natural than now I notice that people buy toys and put them on, and they do put little villages, and they light up the houses and all that. The thing is that I figure that a hill is only for this special little house. So I don't think there's any room for the little village or anything else. So that's why I only put these little ducks here in this little pond.
Now, why are the ducks there?
They're here because that's part of nature. That's all part of nature. That's all. It all has to do with what there is. There is in the world, what there is nearby. I'm pretty sure that even if it was a desert somewhere, there was an oasis or something. Yeah, and so that's, and it goes back to my grandmother. I also have shells there. And
these shells in the
I couldn't find the marbles. Marbles used to go in there. My grandmother used to say that because I used to ask her when I was little, and she was fixing it. I would be there, and I would ask her, why do you put those marbles there? And so they can look pretty. She says no. She says they're toys for the baby. Yeah, so she used to put them there and stick them on the mud, and they do decorate. They do decorate, but I couldn't find my marbles. I have some, but I can't find them yet.
You've lost your marbles.
I lost my marbles.
All right, now we've been standing here long enough. You've got to get to work.
Yes, that's right.
and you've got all of this to fill in here.
Yes, and arrange.
Look at this, Troy, over here. You're putting. Let's do a little mud work here, just to show what you do exactly.
Okay.
So you just reach in there.
And I fix it up so that it can hold in place and fill in the gaps. Because usually people are not supposed to know that there's spots there.
Ah.
Yeah. So I fill in.
Oh, you just fill it right in on top of the pots there.
Yeah, and then I cover up the pot. And
now, do you cover all of the side of the boards and everything?
Yes, I am going to put, see, I have rocks here and all that. I'm going to be putting them, and I'm going to be making it bumpy. See, that's why I put it this way. So it can be bumpy, so it can be, it won't be flat, just like that. It has to
this
show.
is an amazing thing to see, Mary. I didn't know what to expect, but
I'm glad you're enjoying it. I think what this points out is that the nativity scene is not a decoration. It's really much more than a decoration. It's an act of devotion, and it's an assembly. It's a creative assembly. There's family history involved. It's just, there's so much depth to it. It isn't a decoration, as so many people think of when they buy a little set and everything. It has its 10 little pieces or whatever.
Yeah, and there's no real effort put out in making an assemblage like this. This is a work of faith.
Yes, it is.
And of sacrifice and of tradition. You're literally carrying on your family's tradition here.
Yes, Yeah, it was my grandmother, my mother's side, was the one. They used to have what they call pastorelas. I don't know if you've seen any here. They're where all the pastores, which are the shepherds, would come and sing. And they would form big lines. I remember when I was little, because the madrina, the first madrina of my baby, when I was 8 years old, they used to make a big one.
Now, what is that? The first, what was that?
The madrina would be the godmother.
Jesus.
The first godmother of the first baby that I had, the baby Jesus.
What do you mean, godmother?
She was the godmother because we chose her so that she could be able to come and take part with in the ceremony with us. There's a ceremony that we have just before we say the rosary.
So wait a minute, you choose a godmother for the baby Jesus.
Yes, it's part of the tradition. Because the Nacimiento is just part of the whole Christmas season. Before the baby Jesus is put in the cradle on Christmas Eve, a godmother is chosen, and that for the baby Jesus, and she becomes a co-mother with Mrs. Suquette.
And what are her responsibilities?
Well, she brings in the candy, which is what we use for after breaking the piñata, and then she brings new clothes. Now in the first part, like Christmas Eve, the baby's born, so he's going to be dressed up and he's going to be laid down to sleep, okay? And on the 6th of January, when we pick him up, we call him levantamiento. When we pick him up, we sit him up. And then he's dressed in clothes. He's dressed with a dress and a hat. And
So your godmother that you
the
choose
godmother
brings
does
the
all that.
clothing for your baby Jesus
she
in your
sews them by hand
nacimiento.
and everything. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So all those things are done.
Is it a
And,
big deal to be
oh,
asked
yes.
to be the godmother? Who
yes,
do you
very
choose
much.
to do that? Who do
You have to ask a responsible person, one that's going to like it, because there's people that have to do a lot of things or just don't want to take the time. But usually what happens is that the godmother becomes so familiarized with the baby and with us as family that we're actually just like a godmother would be to our own baby. Yeah. And
This is so interesting, and I knew absolutely nothing about this. This is all new to me.
Oh, I'm glad it's
Well, I
new
mean,
to
do
you.
you think?
I think it is new to lots of people. I think people who aren't Hispanic or Mexican American aren't aware that this is a very deep tradition and it's a very rich tradition, and that it entails more than just putting up a nativity scene.
a la ruru niño lindo, a la ruru.
We left Emma hard at work on her nacimiento, looking forward to coming back on January the 6th to meet her whole family and seeing her completed labor of love.
Okay, time has passed. It's now a couple of hours later, and Mary, you have brought us down to Whittier to show us another example of a nacimiento.
Yes, I have. This is another one that's equally as exciting, but it's different than the one we just saw at Emma Suquette's house. The one at Emma's house was very natural. It used a lot of natural ingredients, live plants, mud, shells, those kinds of elements. This one, although she incorporates some natural ingredients, is very different and uses a lot more figures and has a lot of history in each one of the figures.
Okay, we have a welcoming committee here. Jeff and John Paul, you are the grandsons of Ophelia, the lady we're going to meet, right?
Yes.
Is it pretty neat inside what we're going to see?
Oh, yes.
All right,
Great.
good. So you think it's worth a trip inside?
Yeah.
All right, come on, let's go inside and take a look at this
Nacimiento.
nacimiento. Now we're inside. Good evening. I'm Huell Hauser.
I'm Ophelia Esparza.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to
Mary
meet you.
has brought us here because, Mary, this is an example, a whole nother kind of a look from what we saw earlier today.
Right. This one has a lot more figures on it. It doesn't have as much of the, it has natural elements, but it isn't limited to natural elements like mud and rocks and shells.
No mud and rocks here, but a lot of very historic figures that I understand have been in your family for a long time. Tell us a little bit about the history of this.
Well, the pieces, Mary and Joseph, are quite old. They're almost as old as I am. I'm 68. And I remember them as a child, about 8 years old. And the baby Jesus isn't there yet, but he came later.
Now, we learned earlier that the baby Jesus is put out on Christmas Eve itself.
Correct.
So you've
Yes.
held him back
Yes.
in this one. What about all of these other figures? Are there memories attached to each one of them, or do you add new ones every year? How does it work?
Well, there's many stories attached to pieces. Some my mother acquired throughout the years. She would go to Mexico and always bring something back. And then when we the children became adults, we would give her gifts at Christmas time for her nacimiento. She had favorite pieces, and of course my children did too. It's not complete, of course, because we have lots of, it's a menagerie of items that are still to be added.
It looks to me like, too, that there are different styles here. This is very modern here.
Yes, that's a contemporary piece. I'd say it's about 18 years old. It's from Mexico. It's a later acquisition.
And then these are, I'm not sure, what's the story on this?
These are from Mexico. These were a gift from one of my daughter's mother, my daughter-in-law's mother. She gave those to my mother. They're not that that new, I'd say about 10, 15 years old.
But
these-
Mary and Joseph
Now
are
those-
the oldest pieces.
Yes, they are.
So you remember as a child sitting and looking up at these.
Yes, I do, and I was always fascinated because when I was even younger, my mother had a very small baby Jesus, which was not in scale to this one. And so when she acquired the one that we use today, it wasn't much later. I'd say I was about 12, maybe 12 years old when she got the second one. My favorite piece is this angel. It's quite old.
Look at this.
It's from Italy,
beautiful.
and it's been repaired. Many of the pieces are, they're fragile and they've been boxed for so many years now, but I really treasure them, and even if they have a piece missing, they're still part of it.
Now I'm just noticing over here an elephant.
I know, that's very unusual.
What is that all about? I've never seen an elephant.
Well, it seems to be a Mexican tradition. I've seen the three kings. One comes in a camel, one in an elephant, and I've even seen one on a horse. But ours have the camel. The other one doesn't have an animal, so my mother used to put this camel next to him.
And there
But
is the
that
elephant right
yes.
there.
And she didn't use it for several years because the head broke off, but my son made a new head for it, and so we started using it again.
And you've decorated this yourself with obviously the leaves, the stars that you've made out of
Corn husks.
corn husk, and the back, the painting in the back.
Well, it became a tradition for me to paint the background. When I was a teenager, my mother had me paint a painter. I was the artist in the family. And I remember that it was never Bethlehem. It was more like Mexico, a little village in Mexico, as you can see. Well, kind of. And one of the first paintings I did, I went by a book of illustration, and then later when I was older, I realized I had painted the Palacio de Bellas Artes, the fine arts palace in Mexico. But it was, to me, it was a very beautiful building.
And it was the thought that counted anyway,
Yes.
and the involvement you had in it.
Yes.
Now, I've seen pictures of this when it was 4 or 5 or 6 times larger.
Yes, because my mother would set it up in her dining room, which had a big picture window and faced the street. And she loved having it there at the window. So it was a very large endeavor, and we would all help her. My brother would come in sometimes and do the foundation, and then my son started to when she was no longer able to, but it was her nacimiento. If I had my own idea about how to set something, and she said, I don't want it there, I want it there.
There was no debate. It was where she wanted it.
Yes, sometimes I'd go to work and come back and she had moved it or had somebody else move it.
How many pieces were in that original? Because it looked like hundreds of pieces.
I would say
maybe
it was,
thousands.
I'd say it was 200 to 300 pieces.
And you've kind of condensed it this year because you're in your son's home.
Yes.
And the living room just wasn't big enough to put it all in here.
No, and then we have grown so much. My family, my children, my grandchildren, we're just such a large group that we can't have the nacimiento take up half the room, so it's condensed.
But you're still working on it, and we
Yes.
have right here, let's kneel down here and take a look at this, because this is very interesting to me. This is your goodie box
Yes.
right here
These are
of things that still have to be taken out and put on display. And this one is the first one that caught my eye.
Well, this is the favorite of many of the children. It's a crocodile, and it's from Mexico. It's made of ceramic, and sometimes my children would put a lamb or something in here, just as a kind of a, it was their
But now, how does
contribution.
this fit into?
I don't know, it's folk art, I guess. My mother, we counted as many as 25, 26 different kinds of animals, including a dinosaur.
So your mother liked the different kinds of animals.
And we'd have a horse with Zorro on it. The kids would have their own.
Now
this
here's
is
a lamb without a leg.
because it's one of the very oldest ones, and I treasure them even though they're broken, but I camouflage them when I put them on. But this is just a vintage piece back to, you know, I'd say 50 years maybe.
And a cow without an ear.
Yes, there's many pieces that are.
And an angel without an arm.
Well, it's a shepherd.
A shepherd.
Yes, and this goes under something else. My mother made these, and she would have dot the whole nacimiento, because it'll have some foliage here around it, and then I'll hang some of these butterflies. She really liked to have handmade things. And these
would she make this, the
yes,
little bird?
There's quite a number of them. These are, as you can see, they're quite old, and they've survived many years.
These
and
are
I still
wonderful.
include them.
And going through here every Christmas and just pulling these things out must bring back amazing memories for
Many
you.
memories.
I mean, this is like your own family history in this box.
It is the family history of past Christmases past, and that's 3 generations. My sisters and my brother, and we helped, or I was very involved because, of course, I was the artist person. And then my children and some of my nieces and nephews, and now I want my grandchildren to be involved. This is why I really wanted to have it up, even though I don't have room in my house, so my son and my daughter-in-law offered their house, because I want them to grow up with that tradition, or to remember as my children did, as I did.
And the idea is to keep all the old pieces,
yes,
add the new pieces, and keep the tradition.
Yes. And an interesting aspect about ours, since I'm very aware of the aesthetics of putting it together, and of course the scale is not in sync, because some pieces are large, some are small. So I try and create little vignettes, as my mother did, to accommodate everything and yet make them look like they all belong there. And so that was important to her, and it's important to me. Not only the purpose to honor the birth of Christ, but also the artistic part. So that's a very important part of this whole thing. I like angels, and my mother had quite a collection of angels. So I think that by the time this is finished, there will be some changes, and I would like to make another level here, because I like one of the kings to be looking down.
So really a large part of this is the actual way you decide to put it together every year, and
yes,
that probably, now that it's yours,
it's true.
It's purely up to your taste as to what you want to emphasize
Yes,
from year to year.
It's true. It's true. That's I've had this nacimiento, and every year it looks different. It's not exactly the same. I had it. The last time I put it up was at the Museum of Latin American Art, and it was the whole thing. Of course, I had lots of space, and it went out to about 8 feet this way and 10 feet up this way. So I was able to use every single piece.
But you know, it's kind of nice that you have to pick and choose.
Yes, it is.
That you have to think about each piece and decide where to put it, whether to put it out this year, or if you don't put it out this year, you'll put it out next year.
I try and include as many, just like including all your children. I don't like to leave anything out, but if I have to, I will.
Well, I hope there's a place for the poor little...
Oh, yes.
The poor little lamb without a leg. I hope there's a place.
There will be. Where's the diamonds? Where's the okay. The chickens, and we have a farm. We have to get his feathers. That's a pheasant. What else do we have here?
Now, is the hierarchy that you place the items, the kids help you place them?
Yes.
But there's only one director of the show, right?
Just like my mother was, now I'm the director. Oh yeah, this goes here. My mother, you know, when I was a teenager, I thought some of these things were just too gaudy. And I was, you know, I would go, do we have to put it? But now I want to put everything there. Especially, I remember this one especially because I thought, but it doesn't go there. And she says, when you do your own, you put on what you want. I want this here, and she'd put it around the lake, and now I wouldn't leave it out for anything. This is my mother's things. Okay.
See, your mother knew.
Yes.
She knew.
Okay, this is a little angel. I think we'll put him up later. Let's put the angels separately.
Now, we visited with Ophelia and her grandchildren on December 18th, and as we left them, they were hard at work on their nacimiento. Just over 2 weeks later, on the afternoon of January the 6th, we came back to a house full of people and a completed, beautiful project.
Okay, it is early evening on January the 6th. We've come back over to Ophelia's family's house here, and look at what's going on in the living room. The place is packed. Come on in and let's take a look. Hello. Howdy. We got the whole family here. Boy, everybody's in a good mood today.
Yes, we are.
This is part of the ceremony as well, isn't it? Part of the family tradition.
Yes, it is. Christmas Eve was one part of it, and Christmas Day, and today we culminate the presentation of the baby Jesus.
Now, we missed Christmas Eve.
Yes.
Christmas Eve, the baby Jesus was brought in and placed in the manger. Tonight, on January the 6th, what's going to happen?
Well, two of my grandchildren are going to dress the baby Jesus. The clothes were made by an aunt, and they're going to dress him and pass him around and present him to the family, and then place him back into the manger.
This is part of the tradition.
Yes, it is.
Okay, where are the granddaughters? Come on in. Now, what's going to happen? How's this going to work? We'll just stand back and watch.
Okay. Okay. And they're going to dress them. Here's your baby. Get down on the floor.
And by the way, the nacimiento looks great.
Thank you. Thank you very
Look
much.
at this.
Yes.
It's just spectacular the way it's all together. When we were last here, you were still putting it all together.
Yes, it is. And my son Alec helped me. He did part of it, and we coordinated to
Now,
do this.
how does this one compare to some of the others that you've done over the years?
Well, it's not as large, but it's beautiful. I believe every year it's never the same. But as far as I'm pleased with it, and it's very heartening to see the old pieces out again.
Yeah.
For me, it's very nostalgic as well as very a great opportunity for my grandchildren and my family.
Okay, now we have the baby Jesus dressed, and he goes into the cradle here.
Yes, he will, and they're going to pass him around as they sing Las Mañanitas. Bien despierta, mira que ya amaneció, ya los pájaros cantan, luna ya se metió. Qué linda está la mañana.
Now, Mary, you're kind of our scholar, historian, expert on this. Is this the traditional ceremony that's going on all over Mexico, all over southern, northern California? This is the way it's done in most family situations.
Yes, it is. This is on the 6th or sometimes later on the 2nd of February. But here in California, a lot of families do it on the 6th, where they present the baby to the family.
And is it solemn? Is it joyous? Is it what?
Well, like a lot of celebrations, it's both. This is the solemn part, and it's followed by a party.
A party? Okay, now, but first we have something to do before the party, right?
Yes, we do. Okay, we're going to do the arrollar al niño, just one verse, and then we'll put him back in the.
Okay.
Okay, really? Al arrorro niño, al arrorro ya. Duérmase mi niño, duérmaseme ya. Todos en la tierra, aleluya, yan. Ángeles y arcángeles del cielo vendrán, del cielo vendrán. Hey, bien.
This is the way you remember doing it in years past?
Sure, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, I remember especially kissing the baby and then passing out candy and dancing. So
So is that what we're going to do? We're going to pass out the candy and dance? Let's go. All right, now we've moved into the kitchen. And what's going on here in your house today?
Well, what we have is our traditional meal right after the baby Jesus presentation. And we have traditional pozole, which
I've got some of it right here.
And pozole is kind of like menudo, but it doesn't have the same ingredients. It does have the hominy, and it has some beef, and it has the red chili sauce.
And the beans.
And the beans, of course. That's
and
right.
we've got all the kids are coming in first.
That's right.
Followed by some of the big kids back there. So this really is a very festive occasion.
Yes, it is.
Now, is this the first year that you've done this in your home with the?
It's the first time in my home. Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So this is a tradition now that's beginning. Ophelia brought all of the materials over here
That's
to
right.
construct the nacimiento.
That's right. And I've done one in the last 3 years, very small scale, and did a little part in there. But from now this forward, we'll be having it at different
so
homes.
this will be at different homes, or it's yours every year?
Not mine's every year. It'll be at other homes as well.
Yeah. Well, it's fun, isn't it?
It's tremendous. As you can see, all the kids just enjoy the food and the festivity, but most importantly, they're learning the tradition and of the culture.
Yeah.
And that's what we're pleased about.
Yeah. And how much of the culture, how much in today's world is this done? Is this commonplace, or is this bringing in a tradition that a lot of families have actually forgotten or don't carry through anymore?
Well, it's been a bit forgotten in some areas, but as you can see, we're bringing it back. My mom is, since my grandmother is gone, and my mother is getting up in years a little bit, we're working in everyone to experience this. When I was a child, I was doing this, and we hadn't done something like this in a long time. So it's a good time to get this going again.
When it passed on to me, she had me go out to do this.
What are we talking about in here?
Oh, we're just reminiscing about my grandmother and the jobs that we all had of mixing mud and bringing it in, and sand, and putting the Christmas tree in a big tina, which is like a large metal tub, and it had to be exactly right. It had to be done in exactly way.
Otherwise,
What?
it had to be done a certain way, like my dad used to do it. Otherwise, it was no good. And she said, "Well, if you're not gonna do it, get out. You're fired. Go away."
You're fired.
And what about growing up putting the nacimiento together? Did you all help work on that?
Oh yeah, well, I was passed on the job from the elders, and I many hour, many stress too. It wasn't
What do you
easy.
mean stress?
Well, it wasn't easy. My grandmother's a very particular woman, and she is a perfectionist, exactly. But I'll tell
Everybody
you what,
agrees with that, right? Yeah.
I'll tell you what, after all the pain and or the time put into it, when her face would light up when it was done, it was all worth it. Yeah. It really was. It was, and
How does it feel having that tradition back again in the home, in the family, and having all the kids see it and enjoy it the same way you all did?
well, just like the baby Jesus, the rebirth of that, and hopefully there's a rebirth of this tradition to get started. And personally, it makes me feel really good inside.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. I remember the 1971 earthquake. I think it was in February. Was it in January or February? And the nacimiento was up in our living room, and all I could remember was getting up and saying, "El Niño Dios, El Niño Dios," and I ran to the nacimiento and got it to make sure it didn't get destroyed in the earthquake. I'll never forget it. I was probably 6 years old,
Yeah.
but it was very important to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It still is.
Well, I want to thank you for your hospitality and for sharing not only the tradition of the nacimiento, but opening up your home and your family and all of that for us to visit. This is absolutely wonderful. We're ending in a very Southern California way out in the backyard under this beautiful citrus tree with the kids all eating. And this is really a very integral part of family life, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's a great pleasure to have my family together, and here's another opportunity. And for my grandchildren, I really am pleased that they're here and that they experience this event, because I want them to remember what my mother left us and where they came from, their traditions. Hopefully they'll continue.
On the evening of January the 6th, we also visited with Emma in San Gabriel. Now, not only was the outside of her home decorated with bright, colorful Christmas lights, but inside was filled with family and her completed nacimiento.
Well, it's January the 6th, and we're back in your living room, Emma, and it's not quite the same as it was when we were last here.
That's right.
You have a few more people here tonight.
Yes, it's the day of the three wise men, and the little children especially expect some gifts.
Now, what is the significance of the day of the three wise men?
Well, it has to do with the three wise men are supposed to have come until the 6th of January. And when they got there, they had gifts for the baby.
To the manger?
Yes, to the manger, and they had gifts for the baby Jesus. And that's when, in Mexico, that's when they used to give the children gifts. Of course, here, they get them on Christmas, and then they get them on the 6th
But
again.
this tradition is being reestablished with your family members. These are all your grandkids.
Grandchildren.
They've come in to get the gifts.
Yes.
And take a look at this. This is absolutely beautiful what you've done. Now, this has to be one of your best.
Yes.
You think
yes,
so?
I think. Well, every year that I make it, I think I do it better. Better. So, yes. When
Does everybody think this is one of Emma's best? Would you vote yes for a yes? Okay. Now, we're just here to watch and see what happens here.
Okay.
You're in charge, I know that. So we're just going to stand back and watch. Go ahead and do whatever you would normally do.
Now, everybody has to get on their knees except me. This is going to be the first year that my great-granddaughter, Jasmine, is going to be the godmother. So she's going to be learning step by step. Maybe a few of the things are going to be kind of hard for her. First of all, you're going to have to wait for each of the times that we finish the 10 Hail Marys. You're going to start. First, you're going to take off the clothes from the baby in the first one. After we finish with the first one, you take the clothes off, and then the next one you start putting on the diaper. And in the next one, you put on the dress, and then the shoes, and then the hat. So it's going to be 5 times, okay? Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death.
Now, why is this done this way, Emma?
Well, I guess it has to do with the letting people know that he came to this world to be part of us. And he's human like we are. And he, of course, gets dressed as we do. And especially, he was so little, and then where he was born, it was so cold that, like they say, they dressed him in swaddling clothes. So what we do is try to recreate that scene by dressing him up. And in doing so, what we're doing is giving him something of what we have, and for all the blessings that we get since he was born. Adorar al niño que ha nacido ya. Pastores venid, pastores llegar, adorar al niño que ha nacido ya. ¿Quieres que juguemos, niño, al juego del esconder? Tú me escondes en tu pecho, yo en el mío te esconderé. Pastores venid, pastores llegar a adorar al niño que ha nacido ya. Okay.
Emma, you've got a madhouse in here. Now, what's happening now?
Well, right now everybody's into the snacking kind of thing. They want to eat, but as you can see, they all want to be snacking on
So
chips
this is part of it too. There's food.
Yes, and there's usually a lot of happiness, a lot of noise, and it's a very happy occasion. Very happy because everybody's here, and it's good to see them all together. They get a kick out of being together. They don't see each other very often.
This is great.
Yeah, this one is the one that's nearest and her. The rest of them, they all live away, so they come only once in a while.
Well, the
Sometimes
house
they
is
babysit.
full. I can tell you that right now. You got a full house and a happy house.
Yes, a happy house too.
We've been doing it since I was a baby. You know, every year we do it. We get the family together. We're a tight family as it is, and we're always close together. We're either down each other's houses, but this is my mom's time. And
This is when she really excels, isn't it?
this is when she could express herself in her traditional ways, and she's kept the tradition for us. And someday we'll continue it. We'll continue it. Unfortunately, without her, but this is what she wanted, you know. So she'll live with us even after she's gone on this day.
The way I forgot to introduce them. She is a wife of my brother, and she is a wife of my youngest brother. Only my youngest brother didn't come today. Entren santos peregrinos, peregrinos, reciban este rincón, que aunque es pobre la morada, os la doy de corazón. Cantemos con alegría, alegría, todos al considerar Jesús, José, María y María nos vinieron hoy a honrar. De la concha que es María, de la concha que es María, nació para mí, contento nació para mí, contento. Nació para mi alegría, nació para mi alegría, las perlas del sacramento, las perlas del sacramento. Ya salieron los pastores, ya salieron los pastores arreando sus ganaditos, arreando sus ganaditos. Luego levantan el canto, luego levantan el canto a la ruru, niño lindo, a la ruru, niño Dios.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Huell Hauser, and I sure hope you enjoyed this California's Gold Holiday Classic. If you'd like to see this program again or share it with family and friends, it's available on video cassette and on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727, and we'll be glad to send it to you right away. And happy holidays!